So Alabama's Junior Day is finally upon us, a Junior Day that was originally slated for January 20th, but given Nick Saban's retirement, a day that had to be moved. However, just because the day had to be moved does not mean this weekend is going to be devout of talent for the Crimson Tide. If anything, far from it. Every time you check the list, it grows exponentially in size, and today we need to talk about some of the very talented prospects set to be in attendance, but we also need to talk about why this could be just the beginning for the Tide. Before we can, as always, y'all know the drill, I've got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Do you believe DeBoer and company will pick up steam in the class of 2025 this weekend? And let me know what you're thinking. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it, and if you enjoy the content, be sure to like and comment down below. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And I'm very excited about this weekend for Alabama because it seems to be a return to normalcy that so many Alabama fans have craved given the month that they've had. But this weekend is a fantastic opportunity for Coach DeBoer and company to continue doing something that they've been doing really well this previous week, and that's establish relationships within the state and further relationships with top-ranked recruits. And over on Bama Football on YouTube with Kyle Henderson, where you can catch me Monday through Friday from the 10 o'clock hour, I've been talking about this extensively, that I love that Coach DeBoer and them have been on the trail shaking hands, because the biggest question with Coach DeBoer was not the X's and O's. We know he is a wizard there. It was, are you going to be able to recruit in the SEC? Now, I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. I loved his press conference where he acknowledged, hey, I don't have familiarity with this landscape, but I do know how important it is to dominate recruiting in the SEC. I know that I'm not familiar with that, so I'm going to surround myself with people who will be able to do it at a high level. To me, the only way you can ever improve in life is if you acknowledge what you don't know, and that's exactly what Coach DeBoer did. And then when we fast forward, he backed it up with an instant big win for none other than Ryan Williams. And I've seen fans on Twitter of opposing teams argue that Ryan Williams isn't a big deal for Alabama because it's just a simple recommitment. However, that's a disingenuous argument. When you talk about the Ryan Williams recruiting battle, you have got to talk about the three biggest players at Alabama, being Nick Saban, Coach Wiggins, and T-Rob, and none of them are there in coaching capacities anymore. Ryan Williams had pre-existing relationships at Auburn that span back for a year, and his quarterback, KJ Lacey, is currently committed to the Texas Longhorns in the 2025 class, and Texas was chipping away. So Ryan Williams recommitting was, in fact, a major deal. This new staff had to mend relationships and establish relationships for the first time and was able to get in a massive win. They did such a good job, in fact, that we have to remember Ryan Williams canceled the visits to Texas, he canceled the visits to Auburn, and instead of waiting until February 9th, he pulled the trigger a few days later because he was sold. This weekend provides this new staff an opportunity to continue the good job they've already started doing on the recruiting trail, though it's been very early. And this weekend, you have so many talented names coming to visit. Now, we're not going to go through the entire list because we'd be here all day, and even then, we would probably miss some because the list just keeps on growing. But we are going to talk about some names that instantly stood out to me, or some of the names that instantly stood out to me, because there is going to be a lot of talent in attendance. We're going to start with a guy that's currently committed to Alabama on the offensive side of the ball, and that's Anthony Rogers. And I'm excited for Anthony Rogers because whenever you turn on the film, there's no shortage of aspects of his game to love. And one could only imagine what he would be able to do in this offense. Now, I get it. Every time you're talking about Grubb and DeBoer's offense, you instantly talk about the quarterback play and the wide receiver play, and deservedly so. But the area that, in my opinion, is often not talked about enough is how much work the running back did at Washington. Dylan Johnson went for over 1,200 yards and would have continued to be a force in the postseason had he not been so riddled with injuries. That's neither here nor there. Luckily, Alabama has got a deep running back room with several really talented guys that I think are going to get active this coming up season. But if you're an Anthony Rogers, I think it's a major selling point. Seeing a running back get that active active in Dylan Johnson in this offensive system and still seeing other guys have the opportunity to make plays. To me, that shows if you're an offensive weapon, this offensive staff is going to find a way to get you the ball and going to find a way to utilize you within the offense. So if you're Anthony Rodgers, you have to love that. The other thing we talk about is the IMG connection. If you're able to maintain that connection, you're going to be just fine. We move forward. How about Jordan Young? A name from North Carolina who will probably end up as a 5-star because if you check, he is just outside 5-star status on most sites and inside 5-star status in some of the sites. Remember, the 5 stars usually go to the number 32 player in the nation, the number 33 player in the nation, maybe the number 34 player in the nation, but typically there's around 32 to 34 5 stars every single year. He's ranked right inside that area, and he's rated as the number 1 or number 2 athlete in the nation depending on where you look. This is a guy that could be a defensive back or a wide receiver at the next level. He possesses the skills for both. But being able to get him in, foster that relationship is inherently positive. As it's positive with the wide receiver trio of Marcus Harris, Travis Smith, Dalen Upshaw, all very talented individuals. Now, Marcus Harris being from Mater Dei, we know that Alabama has had some great luck out of Mater Dei. Bryce Young coming to the Crimson Tide, winning a Heisman, and being an absolute wizard at the quarterback position, and Alabama just getting in transfer cornerback Damani Jackson. Mater Dei is one of those schools that whenever we talk about these elite high schools, Mater Dei, IMG, you love getting prospects from there. Why? Because on a week-in, week-out basis, not only are they practicing against elite competition in their teammates, but they play a tough schedule, especially that Mater Dei schedule out in the Trinity League in California. They are battle-tested. They have played against guys that will be playing on Saturdays and some who will be playing on Sundays. So you love their ability to try and translate from high school to college ball. But I'm not surprised at all when you look at the list and you see a bunch of wide receivers wanting to come and hear the pitch. You just saw Ryan Williams pull the trigger, and one of the things with a 5-star like Ryan Williams is he can be a bit of a domino effect. And what I mean when I say that, guys, whether they're wide receivers or not, they're going to be interested in playing with talented teammates. They want to put themselves in the best opportunity to win, challenge for national championships, and give themselves the ability to work against the best possible competition on a day-in, day-out basis so that they maximize their own abilities and hopefully can make it to the NFL. Ryan Williams is someone who I have no doubt these other recruits in attendance are excited to hear the pitch that was just levied to Williams. They're excited to see how this staff was able to mend those relationships so quickly, and that's why this weekend is coming at a perfect time. We want to talk about some defensive guys, though, right? I mean, we know that this staff is going to stand out to offensive guys, but Alabama has prided itself on the defensive brand of football, and that's a question I get asked so many times. What will the defense look like? Well, let's talk about some very gifted defensive prospects that will be in attendance. How about an Anthony Saka, a 4-star linebacker from New Jersey who's a very versatile athlete. Whenever you turn on the film, there's a lot of things he can do. Alabama being able to continue to maintain that pipeline to the Northeast would be really big. They've been able to get some great players from that area in the past, and establishing pipelines that you've had previously, though that may not sound like a big deal, it absolutely is. Those pipelines were established with the previous staff, and though they absolutely still exist because the Alabama brand carries weight, you have to maintain them. Nick Saban had to maintain those pipelines, so it goes without saying that Kalen, DeBoer and company will have to maintain those pipelines. But I have no doubt, given the fact that what you hear from Coach DeBoer is that he's super authentic, that he will be able to do so successfully. Another name on the defensive side of the ball that I know Alabama fans everywhere will love is none other than 5-star top 5 player in the class of 2026, Jakeem Stewart, the #1 defensive lineman, the #1 player in the state of Louisiana, and as I alluded to, top 5 player in the class of 2026, and it is never too early to start establishing those relationships because, listen, they're already doing a great job establishing those relationships in the class of 2025. You give this staff, who you hear is so authentic, a full year to foster those relationships for a guy in the class of 2026, this is exactly the news Alabama fans everywhere were wanting to hear, that someone of this level would be in attendance, and luckily they have several really talented prospects on the offensive side, on the defensive side, all heading to Tuscaloosa. How about an Antonio Coleman, a 4-star defensive lineman currently committed to Auburn? If you could flip someone from Auburn to Alabama, well, Alabama fans everywhere would already be over the moon with what you've been able to do in the 2025 class if you're Coach DeBoer. So this is a name we're going to have to watch out for. But it's not just relegated to 2025, ladies and gentlemen. We can go as far as looking inside the 2026 and 2027 classes, where there will be 4-star guys in attendance representing those classes. In 2026, how about Nasir McCoy, a safety from Buford, Georgia? And we just talked about maintaining pipelines. Maintaining a pipeline to IMG, maintaining a pipeline to the Northeast, maintaining a pipeline to Texas, and certainly maintaining a pipeline to Buford, Georgia. That's going to be conducive to success, so you love to see it. Look, there's a lot of names we could talk about, and we'd be here all day talking about the visitor list, but we also need to acknowledge that this is only the beginning, because this week, Alabama fans everywhere were treated to good news, and that's that Zion Grady will be visiting, not this weekend, but on the big event they're putting on in March. And this is something we've got to acknowledge. There's a reason why I started the intro talking about how this date was originally slated for January 20th, but it had to be moved. Because it's hyper impressive to me how many names this staff have been able to get to come to this event, given its almost last-minute nature. A lot of these top-ranked prospects in high school recruiting, they already had visits planned when this was established. So this is really impressive that they're getting this many talented names in, but that event coming in March, it's one we need to keep our eye on. Juju Lewis is someone that this staff has offered. Juju Lewis was someone who is going to be in Georgia this weekend, but in my opinion will be visiting Alabama, and I'm excited to see it. That March date could be one to watch. If you already have a 5-star in Zion Grady going there, who Alabama fans everywhere would love nothing more than to get back into the class, it's going to be interesting to see what work they're able to do between now and then. But we also need to remember, the first big recruiting weekend that Coach DeBoer and company had was Ryan Williams. They knocked it out the park with Noah Carter, Ryan Williams, converting both of those to commitments. This is the second big recruiting weekend. Could we see more of the same follow? Gotta hear from you. Hop down to the comments. Let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.